Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I got two special guests, Pullman, the absurdist, and Raymer
Oh,
Sami, the third worldist. Today we're going to talk about the Scandinavian question, or more appropriately, the Swedish question.
yes.
But these two have a lot of important commentary that I hope to spread across the internet. You want
What?
to introduce yourselves?
I can start. I am the Swedish boy, the absurdist that Voltaire called me. I've been in Voltaire's chats before, and we talked about existentialism in a weird way. And now I'm here to talk about Sweden. So, yeah. Ray?
Yeah, and I've been on the channel before as well. The last time I was on, I think we talked about possibly socialism. I think that's what we talked about.
Didn't you guys talk about what's the American, nationalist? What's his name again? Him getting booted off the platform.
Oh yeah, but that wasn't with Voltaire.
Ah, all right. Great.
Right,
Yeah,
so you may as well just leap in.
Yes. All right. So let's begin. So as many may not know, but it's rather important to know, there's the Swedish election in 9th of September, so less than a month. And it will be one of the most historical, one could say, elections in all of Swedish history. The reason why is because this might be the first time there is a party that is bigger than the Social Democrats. There's never, throughout Swedish history, been... Okay, there has been a party that is... Has it? Actually, I don't know if they have been bigger. But, a party that's not the moderate party, which is the opposition party, that is bigger than the actual Social Democratic Party. And the reason why that is important is the Social Democratic Party is the party that kind of made Sweden what Sweden is. For example, throughout most of 20th century, throughout the different world wars, the Social Democrats were the ones leading the nation. It was a time even when they ruled for 47 years. So no party could really beat them. And the few times they were beaten, at least before the 70s, was just for one term. One term is 4 years. So we have pretty much had a social democratic ruling from like somewhere in the late 1880s up to 1970s. Has been like social democratic all the way. And after that, well, the moderate party, which is the opposition party, has been going on and off since the 70s, but overall they had a majority. And this has shaped how Sweden is. During the 30s, 40s, and 50s, we had the Swedish Folkhem, which is, one could call it today, very fascist. I mean, there is no individuality. Like, you are born in the nation, for the nation, you work. Your existence is for the nation. So it's up for you to contribute to the nation and the nation to contribute to you. You will be given everything, and then after that, you have to just do what they want you to do, and that is mostly do the exercises that they wanted you to do and work they wanted you to do. For example, the funny thing is, even the women at home had pamphlets on what they're gonna do with their time to most efficiently work at home. So the state was everywhere. The idea kind of died out little by little. Didn't like the entire idea of like gymnastics and stuff like that didn't survive the 50s. The 60s and 70s, we still had it. We had high taxation. I mean, the reason why they lost in the 70s was because their taxation was so extreme. For example, one of our main public figures in Sweden, well, two of our main public figures, had over 100% in tax. One of them being Astrid Lindgren, which is a child novelist. She paid 102% in tax, and she wrote a book called something Pomperipossa. I don't really remember it, what they call it, but where she wrote about the child going to this totalitarian society where they had to pay more than 100% in tax, and no one could say no to the government, which was Sweden for the longest time. And the other one was Ingmar Bergman, which is a director in Sweden, very famous. You have seen his work, I guarantee you. He paid 123% in taxes. Well, he didn't pay it. He ran away because it's absurd. And after that, they kind of lost the election in the 70s, and then Sweden has become more liberalized after that. And some of the most important reforms after the 70s is in the 80s during Olof Palme, where he decided to not only take in work immigration, but also refugees. So the refugee, not crisis, but refugee dilemma started in the 80s. The good thing about the 80s was most of the people who came was not in large amount of numbers, and they made it quite well. It was in the 90s it started becoming a problem when the people coming to Sweden had, well, they didn't become a part of the Swedish culture. They created subgroups, and they had identity problems, quite a large part of it, which kind of made the issue that we have today in Sweden with this groups of people having an issue. Like when refugees come, you can't really adapt because there is no way for you to adapt in an easy way. So you either become a criminal or you just wait to leave the country. So it's a bad system built up overall. And to fight against this system that started in the 90s, a party grew up in 1989, I think it was, started by a former SS member, which is the Social Democrats, Swedish Democrats. The SS member, that became irrelevant after the 90s when they started as a nationalistic movement, an ethno-nationalistic movement, but it kind of, who is that? Oh, that was you. Did you join again, Voltaire? Weirdo. Anyways, and during the 90s, they started growing a bit. They started critiquing this issues with separate groups and other things like that, with immigration overall. Not until the beginning of 2000s, they became relevant. In the beginning of 2000s, they started getting like 3%, 4%, and after that, they have grown, and now they're up at 20%. The Swedish Democrats, and they won't win next election. They just won't. Even if they have majority, they will not win. If they have majority, what probably will happen is the Social Democrats and the moderate parties can make a coalition to fight against the Swedish Democrats, which means they are shooting themselves in the head. I mean, it is killing your parties if you do that, because you're not going to solve the issues, and there's still only one opposition party. So it's like, So this election will be very important, deciding Swedish future and fixing the immigration problem, which is a problem, a large one, and the entire world is laughing at us. And if you oppose it in Sweden, you're called a Nazi, and you can actually lose your job. So it's not a pretty picture, sadly.
Isn't that really amazing, though, considering that what you described earlier was kind of like a form of social democracy? So would you say this? Would you say the Swedish Democrats are in that same realm, or are they something else?
They are romanticizing the past. They're romanticizing the big state, the one people. Like, if I allowed to use some proprietarian ideas, the idea of common law, the idea of it's natural actually. One people, one culture, one morality. it's kind of what we built up in the 50s, and that's kind of why it also worked well. Also because we didn't really have poverty, but we had a high trust society. They romanticized that quite a lot, which is fine. The high trust society understand romanticization. What they don't understand is how big the state was back then. But yeah, they usually when you talk to, it's mostly baby boomers who vote Social Democrats, people in the 50s and 60s. They usually come talking to me and they say, "Oh, I remember back in the day, we should go back to the 60s." Even though they were babies during the time, or not even born. You should go back to the 50s and the 60s. It was so good. Not really. It wasn't good. Not at all. I mean, it was good, but you had no personal freedom at all. It was.
So would you say they need a fresh path forward then? They need to not look back to the past for inspiration?
Yes, exactly. That's what we must do. I mean, we're doing a good job. Like, we're a very strong country economically, and we have a very not laissez-faire, but a rather good economic planning. Like, we're good with money. We didn't go full left-wing socialist. Like, we were there back in the 50s, but not anymore. We have freed up the market and freed up the people to do what they want, and it works out great. Honestly, it's perfect. The only issue that we have is we need to be a little bit more social conservative, because we're not enough. I mean, people are, but it's taboo to talking about it, so it's always this conflict. Why are you going in and out, Voltaire?
Oh, just my Wi-Fi acting up. This is why I'm using my tablet right now.
That doesn't disturb the live stream, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
As long as I'm in here, the stream will still keep on going. So that's why I got two of me in this chat right now.
Yeah. The funny thing is, when it comes to the difference between the Social Democrats and the Swedish Democrats, is they're very alike. I mean, the Swedish Democrats has understood. Okay, if you look at them 4 years ago, or like 8 years ago, most of the Swedish Democrats were people who were for folkhemmet. They wanted to go back. That has changed a bit in their policies. They're more right-wing leaning market-wise, and even their highest party members, they say that capitalism is a good thing. And we're talking about people who are working class saying capitalism is good, which means the Swedish Democrats have changed themselves a bit from 8 years ago, and they're more on the right side of economics. So not left anymore, which is a good thing, I would say.
Well, what was the justification initially for them creating this sort of, I guess you'd call this mass migration tendency? I mean, prior to the events of 2013, what was their justification previously? The existing government, I mean.
Wait, say that again? Existing government justification?
Yeah, the existing government. What was their justification for the rate of migration that they were accepting prior to 2013?
Okay, 1980s, it was because we needed workers. That was the excuse back in 1980s. 1990s was the Yugoslavian War and the Iraq War, which we took in refugees to help them. They stayed, obviously.
Can I screen share something?
Sure.
Okay. It's right. That seems to be relevant. Can you see it?
Yes. What is this?
Should be. Okay, there it is.
Ah, yes, this one I showed you. This is the paper that I showed Voltaire. Well, Voltaire actually had a book already, but there's the two books that are really good for understanding Swedish immigration. Here's one of them.
Okay.
This one doesn't really tell anything. It just tells the success of people.
Yes, but you mentioned Iraq, and he also mentioned in Iraq, how Iraq is.
So Iraq, Iran, and Kurdistan. If you want to count Kurdistan as their own nation, obviously. We kind of do that in Sweden because we have a lot of Kurds, which is let's not talk about that geopolitically, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
A lot of Yugoslavs during the 90s, more Iraqis during the 2000s. Who more? That's mostly it. We took in people from Chile and Central America during the 80s as well, during the Pinochet in Chile and civil wars in Central America. We took in Brazilians. There's no war in Brazil, but we took in Brazilians because our queen is half Brazilian, so she let in immigration from Brazil a little bit more easier than most other nations. It's good for her. She's not Brazilian. She's been in Brazil for quite a long time. Our queen's kind of funny. Our queen's father, they're not nobility, by the way. They're rich, but not nobility. Our queen's father was a German during the war, and he seized Jewish factories and stuff, and ran Jewish factories. But let's not talk about that. That our queen's father was a fucking Nazi. Gotta love it.
Oh man, my desktop thing went out again.
As long as the stream's working, buddy, it's all that matters.
I don't know how long this stream will keep on going, but please get to the point, please.
All right. Yeah, it seems to be working at least. I hope so.
It still say live. Never mind. Right now, I am having technical difficulties.
Voltaire, what to do with you, man? So yeah. And when it comes to the right-wing parties right now in Sweden, it two forms that are strong. It's the nationalists and the social conservatives. The nationalists they don't have their own party. The Swedish Democrats are more social conservative than nationalistic. So it's weird to say the least. We're starting to get new parties that are nationalistic, which is Alternative for Sweden, for example. But they are new. They don't have any power at all. No doubt they would even get 1%. It's another party for more, what's called again? Liberals that are conservatives, I guess, called Medborgarsamlingen, but it's the same thing. They're completely new and they don't really have much to yay about. And there's been a few pop-up parties throughout Swedish history, and they come, they get a few percent, and they die. I mean, no party except the Green Party had any staying power, and I doubt these two will have any staying power. It is what it is.
So what do you think of these splits of the Swedish Democrats to the right, what appears to be to the right of the party that's happening? And how do you think that will affect the election that's coming up?
Oh, much. In the Social Democrats right now, there are two parties. They're conservatives and then the not. Because Social Democrats throughout their history has been very Sweden-based. It's been nationalistic socialism. Very much so. So there's still a split somehow inside the party. And that's why many Social Democrats go to the Swedish Democrats, because they feel they are connected. The issue with the Swedish Democrats is then, where should they stay? Like, if they want to get into office, they must be with the moderate party. which means they must go, economically right wing, Swedish economically right wing, obviously. But if they want more voters for themselves and get the people, the working class, they must go to the left, to the Social Democrats. But that's not happening. But there is so it was kind of funny. So to understand the split, happened in 2015, the big split. I was in a student group for liberals and conservatives. There was a professor there talking about something, I don't remember. But we asked him questions afterwards, and he started talking. I'm the kind of guy who sits in the back listening. Asperger is fuck, but no, I'm not Asperger. And he started talking about the change that happened in 2015 in Sweden. So I asked him, like, what change happened? Because I kind of wasn't fully aware what he was talking about. And I said, oh, the refugee crisis. I asked him, okay, how did Sweden change? Then he said, well, everybody took a step to the right. Well, conservatively right, not economically right. ANCAPs became classical liberals, like, more nation-based. Conservatives became nationalists. Liberals became conservative, and so on and so forth. So everybody took a step to the right when it comes to social issues, which mattered. That's why, for example, right now in the moderate party, many people who are what the internet would call red-pilled are starting to join and starting to pop up. And some of them are even talking to fascists, which has been a controversial thing. So we're taking a right turn now, everybody. We're all becoming more conservative. And the Swedish identity is starting to grow up more and more because of the threats that we feel from all of these non-Swedes joining the nation. And racism itself is also growing because of it, which is obviously what's going to happen. Let's face it. We took in like nearly 200,000 people in 1 year, and that's 200 people we took in the asylum. Giving them permits. There's still many tens of thousands who are here without any permit, which people kind of forget about.
That's very true. What has that done for the gender ratio, and how do you think that's going to affect politics going forward in Sweden as well?
So when I judge Sweden, what's going to happen in Sweden, you look at Denmark and you look at Norway. The issue with the Swedes are they are very isolated people. They don't like to look at other nations and see what other nations are doing. If you look at Denmark, you have Danske Folkeparti, which is the equivalent of Swedish Democrats. Danske Folkeparti right now, they were second, got second place in the elections. And instead of staying out of it, they work with the Social Democrats, which kind of fucked them over. So now the Social Democrats, Danske Folkeparti is sinking. Other parties in both Norway and Denmark is growing now, the right-wing parties, which is our Alternative for Sverige. But they have been in power a little longer, so they actually have votes. If I'm correct, in Norway in Denmark it's Nya Borgerliga, and in Norway it's Alliansen. And the thing with these people, these are ethno-nationalists. So, and they're getting like 4 or 5%, I would guess, or a little less, around there. So the question is, will Sweden has one of those? Can the Alternative for Sweden get 4 or 5%? And the answer is no. I doubt it. I strongly doubt it. So even though there will be a shift overall for all parties to go more conservative, there won't be all too much change. I mean, So what usually changes elections are things that happens right before the election. For example, we had the hottest summer ever in recorded history, which makes the Green Party grow. And a few days ago, I think it was 3 days, we had about 80 car burnings all over Sweden, which made the Swedish Democrats grow. But overall, not much is going to change, sadly, what I can see at least. Hopefully people get more conservative, but the generation shift will be the interesting one, like what will happen in 10 years time, because a lot of young people are growing up seeing these issues, and when people do that, they change. So when I grew up, I always heard that the Swedish ouch.
Sorry.
When I grew up, I always heard that Social Democrats are good people. Now people are more hearing that the Swedish Democrats are the good people. So it's always going to be this weird one between the two. Yes.
Okay, I've got another question then. To what extent is the business community in Sweden responsible for the crisis of population that's now being experienced?
A lot, sadly. So it isn't too much big corporations. I mean, they earn money from the people who earn money are mining companies and lumberjack companies, like big factories, one can say, big companies. They earn because of cheap labor, but they didn't really push to get more cheap labor in and of itself. Because if they wanted that, they can just leave the nation. What kind of made a push for people to actually accept it was that private people, like you and I, could help immigrants and get money for it. For example, I actually know people who do this. You can take a bunch of Afghans, you can give them, play football with them or travel to them to different amusement parks around Sweden. And you can get around like, let's use dollars, like $3,000 a month for doing small activities with Afghan boys. So it became very popular. Some of our biggest, entrepreneurs and movie stars start doing that because they earn a shit ton of money. One person, for example, which has been prevalent throughout Swedish politics and is even now boosting about why you should vote for the Christian Democrats and the Swedish Democrats. Bart Karlsson is his name. He runs a refugee camp where he earns shit ton of money from taxpayer money, because our taxes goes to paying Afghan boys to go around and play football. It's absolutely insane, but it does that. And we pay these Swedish men to play football with Afghan boys. Our taxpayer money, which is fucking insane. It is rather sickening, actually, when I think about it.
It's one of those things where they're a little bit tone deaf on what's actually happening.
Yep. But, I mean, the Swedish people are very egotistical. They care only about themselves. So if there's a profit to make, they make it. I mean, there is a reason why you should never trust a Swede in business, because he'll make sure he fucks up for everyone else and earns profit himself. He's a good businessman, but give him the opportunity, he will fuck you over.
Sound like he's Jewish.
Oy vey. And he's not. He's a Swede. We're very isolated. We're very isolated people. We like to be by ourselves.
Yeah. You're also very altruistic,
Because we earn money on it. Because we earn personally from it.
Actually, speaking of that, can we move? Can we move the topic to the Swedish welfare state?
Sure.
So, what's your problems? What's your problems with the welfare state and how it's structured and what type of incentives it produces? Opponent.
The biggest issue, and that's a topic that politicians talks about right now, is that you can earn more money from welfare than you can do from working. My father didn't work for 9 years. The reason why he didn't work for 9 years is because if he found a job, well, many reasons, but if he didn't find a job, what did I just say? If he found a job, he would probably earn less than he would during welfare, because he had a rather good job early on. So he took something called A-kassa, which is arbetskassa, which is something that the union works up with, and the union is the state. I mean, in Sweden, the union is the state. Good luck finding a difference between the two. Where you can earn up to 60% of what you earned previously if you don't work. The only thing you have to do is constantly look for jobs, which you can easily fucking trick because you don't actually check it. So 60% of your previous paycheck every month, forever. No, not forever. After a while, you have to go through a special state-run work, which is called tredje fas, which is after a few years you can, well, after actually, depending. The government will give you some shit job doing some absolutely useless garbage, so you can keep your money every month. And I mean, it is. My father went through it. It is absolutely, completely worthless jobs.
Just seems to be.
So if the incentive, the issue with incentives isn't for new people to find jobs. The issue is for old geezers who has worked a place for a few years, a factory, let's say a factory, for a few years, let's say 10, and then he lost their job because the factory left. They have no incentive of going back to work because they don't earn on it. Because regardless if you work, I mean, okay, let's say this. If you earn 60% of your previous paycheck, 6%, so they take 40% out of your previous paycheck. If you work, they take out 33% of what you're earning. So if you can't find a job that pays good enough, they can actually take away more than what you did during welfare. And not only that, even if you found the same amount, you will only now you have to work 8 hours every day, and you earn maybe 2,000 or 3,000 crowns a month more, which is absolutely not worth it. So there's no incentive going back to work. Your incentives in Sweden right now is to work for a few years, get A-kassa, working, whatever it's called in English, and then retire. And then when they ask you, just hang yourself, because there's fucking no point in working. That's for people over 40, which it's issue there. But overall, we haven't. Our welfare system is. It is interesting. Let's say that.
Yeah, often the point. Yeah, it's often that's point of success of social democrats here in America.
Yes, well, it works in Sweden because we don't have a lot of people. it doesn't. It stops working more and more the more immigrants we're taking in. But the issue with immigration as well is we give welfare even though you're not a citizen. So if you have asylum, you get welfare.
That's kind of problematic.
That is very problematic, I tell you.
I mean, like you sort of just need like a really strong, productive class to fund that type of welfare system if you're allowing immigrants to or refugees to take on welfare. You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that. We have industry that's leaving more and more, at least leaving the villages. We're relying a lot more on service jobs, which is good, but won't stay in the long run. So we're having a stagnated industry, stagnated economy. I mean, it's going good now because it's a boom, but it will stagnate. And now we take all of these people. They won't find a job. You can be here for 10, 15 years. You won't find a job. Good fucking luck. So they're just costing us money and we earn nothing from them. The excuse to take in Afghan boys, they're adults, let's be honest, they're adults, is that we don't have to train them from birth, so they can immediately go out in the work market, which doesn't even sound good on paper. I don't understand. Hey, let's take in a foreign nation to work Swedish people's jobs. Yeah, that won't cause any like. What do you think the people will think of it? They'll fucking hate it, and they do hate it. Because hey, instead of taking in Swedish people to the industry, let's take in Afghan boys that we just imported. What? No. Anyways, Ray.
Also, it seems very strange to me that Sweden is accepting migrants from, or I should say refugees, from wars that Sweden didn't directly participate in.
Oh yeah, we've done that forever.
And also, Sweden is like so far away from so many of these countries that how many places do these people pass through before reaching Sweden? It's a very strange thing.
Back in the day, it was mostly Italy. They went to Italy first, and then Italy kicked them out because Italy doesn't have a welfare system. And then they go up north. They go to Germany, most of them. Like the ones that goes up north goes to Germany first. If Germany doesn't accept them, they get to Denmark, and then they notice the Danish they hate them, and so they go to us. I mean, the Danes, you know, they banned the burqa now, which is sure controversial, but they did this, for example, to fix the refugees, to make sure they didn't come there if they didn't have to come there. Was if you came seeking refugee status, asylum status in Denmark, and you had any valuables, the Danish state would take your valuables, and you can no longer have it. So if you came there with jewelry, they take your jewelry. And their excuse is, if you want to be part of this nation, then you have to also sacrifice yourself. If some jewelry is too high cost to pay to stay in a safe country for the rest of your life, then fuck you and leave. The Norwegians have also not the same policies, but also the xenophobia, one can say, against these people, which is good. It's only Sweden that hasn't really accepted it yet. I mean, down south, where I'm from, Scania, we have the biggest issues because the people up north likes to put them. The people up north hate us. They hate the Scanian people. They are extremely racist against us, for many reasons. So they put most of their immigrations in Malmö, for example, as you heard of before. So it's just shithole and shit people down here. It's just garbage. And most people up north doesn't really feel it. They start feeling it now, but they didn't feel it in the beginning. So most of us down here are very racist in comparison to the rest of the nation, because we're used to dealing with, you know, these gang members and criminals, petty criminals. It's not until 2015 one can say that all of Sweden felt it, because they had to like put them everywhere because there came so many. So they couldn't just put them on us, and we had to deal with it. But down here south, we had local parties has been right wing for a very long time.